Did you know that Christian Horner's departure from Red Bull could be the first step toward Max Verstappen leaving the team? What appears to be a simple internal restructuring hides a power struggle that could change the future of F1. Before continuing, tell me in the comments, do you think Verstappen will stay at Red Bull after all this? What role is Team Verstappen playing in the downfall of one of Red Bull's most iconic figures? And if you don't want to miss what's next, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. In this video, we're going to break down the real reason behind Christian Horner's departure, what implications it has for Max Verstappen, and how it could impact the entire Formula One grid in 2025. To understand why Max Verstappen's future could be more unstable than ever within Red Bull, we must first look at the exact context in which Christian Horner's departure occurred. It was a direct dismissal, carried out by the new leadership at Red Bull, headed by Oliver Mintzlaff. Mintzlaff, who assumed a much more active role following the death of Dietrich Mateschitz, took control of a team that, until recently, had dominated Formula One. But midway through the 2024 season, that dominance began to crumble. The RB21, this season's car, began to show technical and performance weaknesses that could no longer be hidden. And that set off alarm bells at Red Bull headquarters. Helmut Marko, in an interview during the 2025 Belgian Grand Prix, made it clear the team's performance was no longer what it expected. The car, which had been unbeatable in previous years, began to experience a very narrow operating window. This meant that the car only performed well under specific conditions. Only Max Verstappen, with his extraordinary driving skills, managed to keep it competitive. But even he began to show signs of frustration. The moment this technical crisis intersected with an internal power struggle marked the turning point. The so-called Verstappen team, formed by his father, Jos Verstappen, and his manager, Raymond Vermeulen, never had a fluid relationship with Horner. The tensions were known, although they had always remained beneath the surface. However, the loss of competitiveness gave Max's entourage the opportunity to gain political clout within the team. And although Helmut Marko has categorically denied that Horner's departure was driven by the Verstappen family, the truth is that Red Bull's internal stability crumbled at the same time as the confidence of its star driver. This tension is not limited only to the management area. There's also a worrying technical leak. With key figures like Adrian Newey and Jonathan Wheatley out of the team, talk is starting to swirl about a potential loss of identity within Red Bull. And this, of course, has a direct impact on how Verstappen views his future there. Meanwhile, the final decision on Horner's departure wasn't communicated via press release or bureaucratic formalities. It was made in person, just after the Silverstone Grand Prix. A cold shoulder to a relationship that spanned 2 decades, 8 world titles, and an era of undisputed dominance. Within the paddock, the most common comment is that Christian Horner's departure was not only a consequence of poor racing results, but also of silent pressure exerted by Verstappen's entourage. Although Helmut Marko publicly insists that there is no Verstappen faction within Red Bull, the truth is that the Dutch driver and his inner circle have gained more influence than they are willing to admit. The team's internal structure has been altered, and this change does not appear to be accidental. The team surrounding Verstappen, made up of his father Jos and his manager Raymond Vermeulen, has historically been cautious, but extremely strategic. And according to sources close to the team, both have made it clear on more than one occasion that they would not tolerate decisions that would compromise Max's performance or his competitive future. The rumors that have surfaced in recent weeks reinforce this theory. Private meetings are said to have taken place between Mintzlaff and representatives of Verstappen's entourage before Horner's departure was made official. There is also talk of an alleged informal ultimatum. If Red Bull didn't make concrete decisions to ensure a solid and competitive racing project, the driver would explore other options for 2026, when Formula One's new technical regulations come into effect. In this context, the rumors aren't just noise. They are clear indicators that power at Red Bull is no longer as concentrated as it once was. Important decisions are no longer made solely in the Milton Keynes offices, but also in conversations that occur behind the scenes, where the influence of the driver and his entourage is setting the agenda. And if there's one thing that's becoming clear in all of this, it's that Max Verstappen is no longer just a key driver. He has become a powerful figure within the team structure. His continued presence or departure could completely redefine the balance of Formula One today. Amid all this noise, Red Bull has tried to project an image of control. But behind closed doors, the feeling is different. Christian Horner's departure was not a simple decision, and its impact has been profound. To try to calm the waters, the management structure has accelerated its internal reconfiguration. Laurent Mekies, with previous experience at Ferrari and AlphaTauri, was appointed the new team principal. But his role has been very clearly defined, focused solely on sporting performance, without interference in strategic decisions. This limitation on his duties makes it clear that high-level decisions are now made from Austria, under the direct supervision of the headquarters in Fuschel MC. This new configuration seeks to eliminate any room for internal conflict. However, it also raises questions about who truly controls the team. Because, while there is talk of harmony, what has become clear is that there are new hierarchies, new priorities, and possibly new interests at stake. If Max Verstappen decides to leave Red Bull, the impact would be immediate and profound. We wouldn't be talking about a simple driver transfer. We would be facing a structural change that could redraw the power map of current Formula One. And that's no exaggeration. Without Verstappen, Red Bull not only loses its on-track leader, it loses the core around which its entire sporting and media operations revolve. The commercial value of Red Bull Racing is closely tied to Verstappen. Sponsorships, advertising deals, image rights, much of this is leveraged by his presence. An abrupt departure could generate a domino effect of lost investments, contract renegotiations, and a decline in attractiveness to new business partners. Formula One is a business, and businesses respond to the performance and image of icons. Furthermore, Verstappen's departure would trigger a domino effect in the driver market. His decision would trigger others. If Max leaves Red Bull, other drivers will move, contracts will be renegotiated, and a new phase of high-profile signings will begin. The entire grid could be altered in a matter of weeks. A single change could reconfigure the entire Formula One ecosystem. But the most delicate aspect of this scenario is what it would mean for Red Bull's legacy. Without Horner, without Newey, and without Verstappen, the structure would lose its three fundamental pillars. The narrative of a dominant team could quickly become that of a giant in transition, or worse, in decline. And that would affect not only its performance, but also its reputation. From a sporting perspective, Red Bull has begun implementing changes in the development of the RB21 with the intention of recovering lost performance. Helmut Marko has publicly stated that they are working to extend the car's operating window, making it less sensitive to temperature changes or configuration adjustments. The goal is clear: to build a solid foundation that will restore Verstappen's seemingly lost confidence. And Max himself hasn't hidden his displeasure. Although he maintains his composure in public, his statements reveal a clear dissatisfaction. At Spa, he was blunt. The new aerodynamic package helps, but it's not enough. He openly acknowledged that the car has limitations that are difficult to address in the short term. And when a driver like him speaks like this, the message between the lines is clear. He's asking for answers. He's demanding guarantees. What's interesting is that, while Red Bull is striving to regain competitiveness, it's also trying to reinforce its institutional message. Marko has insisted that the team's philosophy remains the same: develop young talent, innovate, and compete at the highest level. However, these kinds of statements have a more defensive tone than an inspirational one. They seem designed to prevent other key team members from considering leaving, as Newey and Wheatley already did. In this scenario, the dynamic between team and driver is more delicate than ever. Red Bull tries to display cohesion, but behind that facade lies constant pressure to keep its star within the family. And if anything fails in that relationship, the consequences can be immediate. With the current situation so fraught with internal tension and external threats, the immediate question is, what will happen within Red Bull in the coming months? The answer is not simple. Red Bull has already confirmed that it will introduce new updates for the RB21 at the Hungarian Grand Prix. These improvements will not be cosmetic or minor. The technical objective is to expand the car's operating window. In other words, they are seeking to make the car less dependent on such specific conditions to perform at its best. The most repeated criticism from the drivers, especially Verstappen and Tsunoda, has been the car's instability outside of its ideal configuration. And that's a weakness they can't afford if they want to keep Max on the team. But beyond mechanical improvements, the future will also depend on stability in internal management. Laurent Mekies will have to consolidate his leadership as the new team principal in an environment where every decision will be closely watched. His challenge is no small feat. He must regain the trust of the paddock, keep the squad motivated, and at the same time, meet the expectations of the most important driver on the grid. All of this without the support of figures like Horner or the technical genius of Adrian Newey. Helmut Marko, from his position as a historic figure within the team, has assured that Red Bull will not stop fighting for the championship as long as there is a mathematical possibility. What is clear is that the driver market for 2026 has come early, and what happens in the next 6 or 7 races could completely define Max Verstappen's fate. Every result, every update, every internal movement will be interpreted as a sign. In short, what began as a simple internal restructuring within Red Bull has ended up uncovering a web of accumulated tensions, leadership fractures, and an uncertain future for its most important asset, Max Verstappen. Christian Horner's departure was not an isolated move. It was a clear sign that the team is going through one of its most delicate moments since its inception. A moment in which much more than a championship is at stake. Helmut Marko's words, Oliver Mintzlaff's decisions, and the silent movements of Verstappen's entourage form a puzzle that, when completed, could reveal a completely different picture than the one we knew. And you who've made it this far already have the keys to understanding what's really at stake. Now I want to know your opinion. Do you think Verstappen should continue to commit to Red Bull, or should he already be thinking about a new destination for 2026? Is he taking control of the team, or is he just waiting for the right moment to leave? Leave me your answer in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.